Welcome to The Atlantic at Sundance. I'm Shirley Li, a staff writer with The Atlantic, and I'm so excited to be moderating today's panel. Rita Moreno is an award-winning actress whose career spans more than 70 years. Originally from Puerto Rico, she became the first Hispanic woman to win an Academy Award for her role in 1961's West Side Story, and she's one of the few performers to have won all four of the most prestigious entertainment awards, as in the Emmys, Grammys, Oscars, and Tonys. But stardom, of course, hasn't always been easy. She spent decades fighting Hollywood typecasting, sexual harassment, and her own insecurity, all of which is chronicled in the new documentary, Rita Moreno, Just a Girl Who Decided to Go For It. Joining me now is Rita Moreno and the director of the documentary, Mariem Pérez Riera. Welcome.
Hey, well done.
Thank you so much. Thank you both for joining. Rita, I want to start with you. Let's talk about your goals for participating in this documentary. What did you want to cover the most to talk about in this filmed medium versus what you did with your memoir, which was published in 2013?
Well, it is a biography. So truly, it's just the story of my life in 90 minutes, which is really not possible because I'm a very mischievous person. So there's lots to tell. However, the idea interested me, especially at this late stage of my life. I liked that. And mostly what interested me the most was the idea, the notion that I could possibly help to be an inspiration to young people who felt as though they were outliers. Because I was, heaven knows, and my story absolutely supports that. And I thought it could be, in a way, I felt about it the way I felt about doing the children's show I did years ago, The Electric Company, which was a community service, as it were. Mm-hmm. That show helped teach children to read. And this might just help young people to understand the difficulties of being in this profession. I should call it a business, I guess, but I think of it as a profession. And I think it's important to be a spokesperson in a way for young people who feel that they're having a hard time doing what they want most in life, which is not necessarily be an actor, but to be somebody in another kind of profession. And that's exactly what happened. And in fact, somebody just told me recently, one of the producers of this should be in high schools. And I had never thought of that. I assume you saw it.
Yes, I did.
Okay. What you think?
I think the same thing. I think it's so instructive. And I'm actually really curious. I'm going to toss this question over to Mariem. Obviously, Rita's career covers more than 7 decades and features so much variety. So when you signed on to direct, what was on your wish list of subjects to tackle? What did you want to ask Rita about the most?
Originally, I wanted to show the vulnerable side of Rita because I've been seeing Rita for a couple of years on the set of One Day at a Time, and I could observe her not being Rita in front of the camera, but the real Rita behind it. And I really, really wanted to show that part because I thought it is something that not that many people get to see. And like Rita said, I think it helps to anyone to see that whatever you have won doesn't mean that life is easy. So I really wanted to show her day-to-day life, the work that she had to do in a day-to-day life. But when I started researching more on her, and when I the first interview I did to her, I realized that she was talking to me as she was talking to any woman. I could relate so much on all the topics that she was saying, as if she was telling my stories of struggles, of insecurities, of sexual harassment, of being discriminated. And so I decided I wanted this movie to also show more of that side so that other women could get inspired as well to keep searching for her freedom and keep searching for their true self, and knowing that someone like Rita was able to do it after so many wins in her career, so many success, but her interior, her spirit needed to be free, needed to be someone who she felt happy, and I think she finally was able to accomplish that, and that's something I want the most for people to be able to see in the movie and to be inspired by.
Absolutely. The film is so incredibly inspirational and it's so candid, like you say. So Rita, I'm curious, in the film you talk so candidly about the frustrations that you felt in early in your career, playing stereotypical quote unquote ethnic characters, and how diminishing that was. Hollywood still remains under intense scrutiny for its lack of diversity and inclusivity, right, both on screen and behind the camera. So how much progress do you feel has been made, especially now as your career kind of comes full circle with Steven Spielberg's take on West Side Story?
I think we have a long way to go. When I say we, I'm referring to Hispanics in the profession, let alone outside of that. We still haven't made our movie. We still haven't made our moonlight. Where is our moonlight? And I've been examining that a lot lately, given my age, which is, at the moment is 89. And I don't get it. I don't quite understand what has happened, or rather what hasn't happened. I don't know why I think the Black community has done a fabulous job in helping bring attention to their community, to their lives, in the most brilliant way, by the way. I have nothing but admiration. Why hasn't that happened to us? It's a complicated question, because when I stop to think about it, I think, okay, I come from Puerto Rico. Somebody else comes from Argentina. We're all Spanish-speaking people. Some people come from Mexico. Some people come from Spain. We are from many different countries. And I'm thinking that America doesn't see it that way. We all eat tacos. And we're all fiery. In my case, I'm a loudmouth. I'm a raucous person. I'm very Latina. But what is wrong with this picture? And I have a feeling, and I've been hearing this a lot lately from other Hispanic people, that perhaps we haven't done the best job in the world of supporting each other. Is that it's as though we have siloed ourselves, so that there's still the Puerto Rican, and there's still the Mexican, and there's still, and so on. And I don't know that I'm going to see that change much in my lifetime, because I am 89. So I'm going to do everything that I can to bring about, or remind people, bring about a change. We need to be more supportive of each other, I believe. Mm-hmm. I don't know how that's going to happen. That's going to be up to other people. But I don't see it happening too soon. I think we first have to admit to each other that we haven't been as supportive to each other as we might have been in the past. We love each other. We do. We admire each other. But somewhere along the line, we are not lifting each other up. And it's very difficult for me to understand, but I'm not happy about it.
Well, then, Rita, going off of that, I am curious, when would you say was the first time you felt emboldened in Hollywood to speak up and say something? There's a segment in the film about, the offensive lyrics in the song "America" in West Side Story, and that resulted in some changes in the song, right? But when did you first feel like you could say something?
It started, I'm not one for dates because of my age, for one thing. I can't remember dates to save my life. But that's really not unusual for me. I've never remembered dates. It started, I think it's because of a roommate. I had a roommate who was quite radical, and I met her in group therapy. Her name was Phyllis, and she began to educate me. She saw that I was terrific raw material. She saw that I would get very, very upset when people were used or abused badly, either figuratively or literally. And she began to literally educate me. Because for one thing, in terms of education, I've had almost none. I quit school when I was in first year of high, and I started to work as a dancer. But the very first thing I did, and it was really thanks to her, was a Ban the Bomb rally. It's when they were doing atom bomb tests in Nevada, in the desert. And she and I both found out that the residue from these tests was landing in meadows where cows ate grass and made milk for babies. So it was a very, very serious thing. Mm-hmm. And somebody called me, probably thanks to her, and said, would you speak at a rally? Because I understand you're very unhappy about this. And I said, absolutely. But what do I say? I mean, I'd never done anything even remotely like that. So literally somebody wrote a speech for me, some radical guy who was a screenwriter. And he wrote me a very short speech about how we really had to get together and use our strength and our power and our voices to get them to stop doing that in Vegas, not Vegas, but Nevada. And they did, actually, eventually. And that's how I became radicalized, actually. From then on, I was very, very interested in the plight of people, because it was so easy to put myself in their place. I'd had a very rough childhood with respect to being a Puerto Rican. I'd run into a lot of prejudice, and I was bullied and insulted and assaulted by terrible names like Spick, and which doesn't even get used anymore. Garlic mouth, things like that. And I really became a completely different person in that sense. I became very serious about it. It was so easy for me to put myself in the place of others who were being abused.
Thank you for sharing that story. It sounds like, a suggestion from a roommate leads to an awakening of sorts, and
Absolutely.
more support. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. Because honestly, before she and I began a room together, I didn't have a clue. I really didn't, or I didn't care. I didn't care because I wasn't aware.
There you go.
The moment I became aware, I cared a lot and deeply. And here you have me.
There you have it.
Yeah.
Now, Mariem, I read that you're also breaking ground, actually, as the first Puerto Rican woman to direct, write, and edit one of PBS's American Masters documentaries, of which this is one. So I'd like to ask you the same question. Americans of Latin American descent are the second largest demographic group in the country. So what does proper representation in this industry mean to you?
I also think it's because, like Rita was saying, we're seen as this group, and we are actually different countries.
Nationalities.
So we have different ways of being Puerto Ricans are very different to Mexicans or to Argentinians, for example. And I think from what I've read in scripts that I keep reading, they still want to show the same movie of the Latinos crossing the border, and that's it. And we are so much more than that. We are that, but we are so much more than that. There's so many stories of success, of journalists who are Latinos, or actors who are Latinos, or people that work in different industries that are not just the ones that are begging, or not just the ones that are here in the United States undocumented. And it gets tired. And maybe that's why also the Latino community is not supporting those type of movies or shows, because it doesn't necessarily speak to all of us. It doesn't necessarily represent all of us, or what we aspire, or what we want to see in order to feel inspired. So I think it also we need to change that mentality of what is a Latino, because we are very different and varied, including in different colors. We are Black and white and everything in between. So it needs a lot of representation. It does need that, because I don't see myself in none of the shows. Imagine Rita. Rita never saw herself when she was trying to become an actor in Hollywood. She didn't have somebody to look up to, because nobody was like her. And it kind of is still that way, with some exceptions, but we still have a long way to go. A long way to go.
Absolutely. Well,
It's
speaking of,
depressing. It's awful. It is. It's terrible. I don't think somehow that we are represented as we need to be. There's so much we can bring to the table. You know, I feel like I'm selling myself now as a Puerto Rican, but the music, the food, the personalities, we are so many different things, and it breaks my heart. And I now and then I will see some attempt at bringing a Latino character to let's say a sitcom, and it's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing, and I feel sorry for that particular actor or actress. I know it's very easy for me to say, don't take the part, but you got to pay the rent. And that was my story as well when I was younger. I really literally did have to pay the rent. I had to take my clothes to the dry cleaner. I had to cook my food. So you do things that you're not happy about. And it's something that also brings on self hatred.
right. I did.
If you're not happy about yourself.
Rita, I did want to.
You feel that you're selling out, and you are in a way.
Yeah. Rita, I did want to ask about that. I mean, in this film, I know you covered some of these subjects in your memoir, but you do have to open old wounds, right? You did talk about, your imperfect marriage, for example, your relationship with Marlon Brando, but also the ups and downs of your life. How hard was it to open those old wounds and revisit those chapters again so candidly?
Well, candidly is what I promised myself. So you will notice that now and then it's hard for me to come up with the answer immediately, and it's just because it's difficult. But wait a minute, what was the question?
The question was, what was it like revisiting those chapters of your life?
Yeah. Sometimes it was extremely difficult. It was very difficult when I was talking about my husband, because he was a truly remarkable man. He was the most loving grandpa and father to our daughter that you've ever met in your life. I mean, really remarkable. There was nothing wrong with him, but he didn't know how to be a husband. And the relationship became fraught because he became more and more controlling as the marriage wore on. So I was really unhappy for a very, very long time. It wasn't just the last 7 years, or it was going on for a very long time. And I felt unable to leave or separate because of our daughter. I just thought that if I left him, something awful would happen with my daughter. But more than that, because he was a controlling man, and by the way, not consciously, I really felt that I would be helpless without him. Sound familiar? You know, it's such an old story, particularly with people from my era, where you feel that the man is the boss. And the man, even though you may not say that to yourself consciously, that's how you're brought up. I mean, I remember my mother saying, now you be nice to men. You have to be really nice. Doesn't matter what they say. You always be nice and you'll be polite. That's how I was raised. So the idea of divorcing, let alone just even leaving the marriage, was unthinkable to me. But in his way, it was so insidious. He had made me feel that without him, I would be absolutely lost. And I did believe that, completely believed it.
Well, our time is almost up, so I do have to wrap up soon, but I do have one more question that I'm hoping both of you can
Think of
answer.
something happy.
Well, hopefully this is. I'd like to know from both of you. Well, Rita, this film explores, the way others perceived you and the way you perceived yourself, and how those forces became intertwined, throughout your life, and how hard it was to figure out who you were. So, Rita, what has working on this documentary helped you realize about yourself? And Mariem, what has working on this documentary helped you realize, perhaps about yourself and about Rita?
With respect to myself, I now finally agree that I've had quite a life. I never thought of my life as, and when I came away from seeing it for the first time, I've only seen it once, I said, wow, that's an amazing life. And I'm still standing. And I think it should be a tribute to inner strength and how you really can use it. And that's the whole idea. I think the objective, if there's such a thing, that you are never nearly as helpless as you think you are. That's easy for me to say. And I have to also say that therapy helped me immensely, psychotherapy.
Absolutely. Now,
And-
Mariem?
Well, I would say this documentary was a therapy for me. So it was amazing to be able to work in this documentary, because when I started working on it, I was in a low point in my life, and listening to Rita became my way of healing, and it was my therapy. So I learned so much from her, and from being a woman again. I keep saying that because I realized that we had a lot in common, and I realized that we all women have a lot in common when it has to deal with insecurities that we have learned in our generations, because we live in a world that is mainly male dominant. So to me, it was really great to listen to Rita, because I learned a lot from her, and it gave me so much strength to understand what was going on with me and what I needed to do. And so her documentary became, to me, like a little bit of my story as well. And I think it's going to be a little bit of any women and any immigrant story as well.
Well, on that note, Rita and Mariem, thank you both so much for being here. The film, Rita Moreno, Just a Girl Who Decided to Go For It, was also co-produced by the Puerto Rican producer Ilia Velez. To read more of our stories and to subscribe to The Atlantic, please visit theatlantic.com/culture and check out more of our coverage of Sundance right here on The Atlantic's YouTube page and the Sundance Film Festival's virtual Main Street. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.